The pulsating heart of the galaxy's most notorious space station, Axiom 9, throbbed with life beneath layers of metal and neon. Its corridors and chambers echoed with a symphony of murmurs, clinking glasses, distant gunfire, and whispered promises. Axiom 9 was more than just a transit point between star systems. It was a melting pot of species, cultures, and secrets. Smugglers, mercenaries, diplomats, thieves, and thrill-seekers converged here, their lives intertwining in the shadows cast by towering spires and luminescent billboards. It was a place where danger and desire were currency, and where every glance could conceal a threat or an invitation. Jace Mercer moved through this maelstrom with practiced ease. A freelance smuggler with a reputation carved from narrow escapes and half-truths, he had learned to read the station like an ancient tome. The flicker of a guard's augmented eye, the hurried pace of a nervous courier, the subtle twitch of a hand near a concealed weapon all spoke volumes to him. He was both predator and prey in this environment, a man who thrived in the gray spaces between law and anarchy. His lean frame was clad in a worn leather jacket that had seen better days, pockets laden with contraband tech and credits, his sharp hazel eyes always scanning, always calculating. Yet despite his seasoned experience, nothing about the encounter that night in the Obsidian Vale bar had been expected. The Obsidian Vale was a sanctuary for those who danced on the edge, illegal gamblers, information brokers, and beings who preferred the shadows to the blinding lights. Its smoky haze wrapped around patrons like a veil of secrecy, muffling the chaos of the station outside. Jace had come seeking only a brief respite and perhaps a few contacts to facilitate his next run, but what he found was something far more disarming. She stood apart from the usual crowd, tall, lithe, and ethereal. Vera was an enigma, her skin shimmering faintly with an opalescent sheen that caught the dim light and fractured it into delicate rainbows. Her eyes, larger than human norms and framed by delicate lashes, glowed with an intensity that seemed unnatural, as if they could pierce the veil of time and thought itself. Rumors whispered that she was a Namari empath, a rare alien subspecies gifted or cursed with the ability to read the emotions and thoughts of those around her. Many feared her, claiming she could unearth the darkest desires and secrets without so much as a word. Others were drawn to her, captivated by the mystery she embodied. When their gazes locked, it was as if the world around them shifted. Jace felt a sudden surge of heat ripple through him, a vulnerability that was both exhilarating and terrifying. He had always been guarded, trained to keep his intentions hidden beneath layers of cynicism and bravado. But in her presence, the walls faltered. His mind, usually a fortress of calculated thoughts and coded lies, began to betray him. Fleeting images flashed behind his eyes, the reckless impulses, the fantasies he buried deep beneath a veneer of control. The dirty thoughts he had always tried to keep locked away spilled forth, unbidden and raw. Vera smiled, a slow, knowing curve of lips that spoke of secrets and acceptance. She didn't recoil from the shadows within him. Instead, she seemed to embrace them, weaving them into a tapestry that was as intoxicating as it was unnerving. "You try to hide," she whispered, her voice a melody that danced around him. "But your thoughts are loud, and I hear them clearly." Jace swallowed hard, his usual retort caught in his throat. How could she see so much without a word? He had been with many women, humans, aliens, cyborgs, all adept at reading body language and masking truths. But none had penetrated his mind so effortlessly. It was as if she bypassed the walls entirely and stood within the tangled maze of his psyche, exploring chambers he hadn't dared enter. That night, they talked beneath the flickering hollow lights of the veil, their conversation a tangled dance of revelation and restraint. Vera spoke of the empathic gift she carried, how it was both blessing and burden, allowing her to connect deeply, but also leaving her vulnerable to the storms of others' emotions. Jace found himself sharing things he would never confess aloud, thoughts laced with desire, fear, and the raw ache for connection. In turn, Vera revealed fragments of her own loneliness, the isolation born from being so deeply attuned to others, yet so profoundly apart. The night stretched into dawn, and with each passing hour, their bond deepened. Jace realized that with Vera, there was no need for pretense or masks. She read his dirty thoughts not with judgment, but with a fierce tenderness that unsettled and comforted him all at once. It was a connection unlike any he had known, blurring the lines between mind and heart, between desire and understanding. But beneath the surface of their growing intimacy, shadows lurked. The empathic ability that drew them together also made Vera a target by those who sought to exploit her gift for power, by enemies from her past, and by the darker corners of Axiom 9 itself. For Jace, protecting her meant confronting dangers he had long avoided, unearthing strengths he never knew he possessed. As the sun rose over the glittering expanse of stars visible through the station's massive viewport, Jace understood that his life had irrevocably changed. The dirty thoughts he once buried were now a shared secret, a bond that could either bind them in profound love or unravel them in peril. And in the depths of his mind, where shadows and light entwined, he knew that with Vera, the game had only just begun. Jace's mind raced, a storm of emotions crashing through the barriers he had so carefully built over years of survival on the edges of civilized space. Normally, he thrived on keeping his thoughts locked away, especially the raw, unfiltered desires and fantasies that gnawed at the edges of his consciousness. But Vera, with her penetrating gaze and alien empathy, had shattered that fortress with a glance. He felt exposed, vulnerable in a way that was equal parts terrifying and exhilarating. Her presence was like a magnetic pull, drawing forth every hidden thought he'd tried to suppress, the reckless longing for connection, the secret cravings born of loneliness and danger. Around them, the obsidian veil thrummed with life, a cacophony of alien languages, clinking glasses, and whispered deals in shadowed booths. The haze of smoke and holographic advertisements lent an otherworldly glow to the scene. But for Jace, the entire world had narrowed to the space between him and Vera. She leaned in slightly, her breath warm and scented faintly of exotic spices native to her homeworld. "Your mind is a wild place," she murmured, eyes gleaming with a mixture of amusement and affection. "I can't help but wander through it, unraveling your secrets one by one." Jace laughed nervously, a dry sound tinged with disbelief. "Most people don't like it when I get too close," he admitted, his voice low. "Even fewer can handle what's going on inside my head." The weight of years spent dodging suspicion and betrayal pressed down on him. But with Vera, there was no pretense, only raw, honest connection. It was both terrifying and intoxicating. She smiled, the curve of her lips both mischievous and tender. "I don't just see your thoughts," she said softly. "I understand them. The fears, the hopes, the deliciously wicked bits you hide, even from yourself." Her words sent a shiver down Jace's spine, igniting a fire that burned away his usual cynicism. It was the first time anyone had looked at him and seen beyond the surface, not just his smuggler's bravado or hardened exterior, but the tangled desires beneath. The bar's crowd buzzed with life, but around them time seemed to stretch and bend, cocooning them in an intimate bubble. Jace found himself sharing stories he'd never told of lost loves, near-death escapes, and nights filled with both pleasure and regret. Vera listened without judgment, her empathy weaving a tapestry of understanding that bound them closer with each whispered confession. She, too, spoke of isolation born from her gift, the loneliness of feeling everyone's pain and desire as if it were her own. As the night deepened, their connection intensified. Vera's hands brushed against his arm, sending sparks of electricity through his skin. Her touch was gentle yet commanding, a reminder that beneath her empathic power was a being who craved connection just as fiercely. She traced patterns along his jawline, her eyes locked with his, conveying a promise of acceptance and passion that transcended words. But amid the growing intimacy, Jace couldn't shake the shadow lurking at the edges, the danger her abilities attracted. In the underbelly of Axiom 9, power brokers and mercenaries coveted empaths for their mind-reading talents, willing to do anything to control or exploit them. Jace knew that by drawing close to Vera, he had painted a target on his own back. Yet, the thought of letting her go was unbearable. When the first pale light of dawn filtered through the station's viewport, casting long shadows over their intertwined forms, Jace realized his life had irrevocably changed. The dirty thoughts he once buried were now a shared secret, a wild, beautiful bond that could either save them or doom them. And in the depths of his mind, where desire and fear tangled, he understood one undeniable truth. With Vera, nothing would ever be the same again. Chapter 2. Tangled Minds and Hidden Dangers. The sprawling expanse of Axiom 9, with its labyrinthine corridors and glittering neon, was both sanctuary and prison. Beneath its glossy veneer of commerce and vice, shadowy currents surged, secrets traded like currency, loyalties forged in whispered conspiracies, and dangers lurking just beyond the reach of the station's flickering lights. For Jace Mercer, the station was home and battleground, a place where every choice could mean survival or death, and every face could hide friend or foe. But since meeting Vera, the stakes had shifted from simple survival to something far more complex and perilous. Their connection, forged in the haze of the Obsidian Vale's smoky lounge, had blossomed quickly, threaded through with vulnerability and unspoken understanding. Yet with every deepening layer of intimacy, Jace found himself caught in a tangled web woven not just by desire, but by the dangers of a galaxy that neither technology nor love could easily outrun. Vera's empathic gift was as much a blessing as it was a beacon to those who sought to harness or destroy her power, and Jace's role as her protector had thrust him into a world far darker than any he had navigated before. Days after their initial encounter, the quiet moments they had shared were shattered by an intrusion, a sleek, black-clad assassin who slipped through the station's shadows like a ghost. The man's augmented eyes glowed red, scanning for Vera's unique neural signature. Jace sensed the threat long before the assassin struck, his instincts honed by years of close calls and betrayals. In a blur of motion, Jace intercepted the attack, the clang of metal on metal echoing through a dim corridor as they grappled. Vera, sensing the danger, unleashed a wave of empathic energy that rattled the attacker's mind, buying them precious seconds to escape. That night, safe in the relative sanctuary of Vera's quarters, the true weight of their situation settled over them. "They know who I am," Vera whispered, voice trembling with a mixture of fear and resolve. "And they will keep coming." Jace, hardened by years of hardship, but unprepared for the vulnerability that came with protecting someone so uniquely targeted, vowed to stand by her side. Their alliance was no longer a matter of choice but of necessity, forged in the crucible of imminent danger. Navigating the station's complex political undercurrents, Jace and Vera sought allies among factions wary of the power vacuum her abilities could create. Some saw her as a threat to be neutralized, others as a tool to be exploited. Trust was scarce. Every conversation was shadowed by suspicion. Yet amid the intrigue, their bond deepened, anchored by shared nights where words gave way to raw, unfiltered connection. Vera's mind probed Jace's darkest fantasies and secret fears, not with judgment, but with a tenderness that disarmed his defenses. In return, he learned to navigate the labyrinth of her empathic depths, understanding the cost of her gift, a constant flood of emotions and thoughts not her own. As they delved deeper into the station's underworld, a revelation surfaced: a syndicate specializing in capturing and selling empathic individuals to the highest bidder. Their reach extended beyond Axiom 9, spanning star systems and weaving into political machinations that threatened to ignite interstellar conflict. Jace realized that protecting Vera was not just about evading assassins, but dismantling a network that preyed on the vulnerable and threatened the fragile peace of the galaxy. The stakes escalated when Vera was captured during a covert meeting meant to secure allies. Jace's world fractured. His mind, usually a fortress of calm and calculation, was overwhelmed by a torrent of fear, desperation, and rage, the very emotions he had tried to suppress. He plunged into a relentless pursuit, risking everything to infiltrate the syndicate's fortress-like compound on a distant mining colony. The rescue was brutal, a testament to his resilience and the unyielding force of his love and loyalty. Freed but changed, Vera grappled with the trauma of captivity and the invasive probes that sought to map and exploit her empathic abilities. Jace became her anchor, grounding her through long nights filled with whispered reassurances and the healing power of touch. Their intimacy evolved, layered with a fierce protectiveness and an unspoken understanding that their survival depended on both their minds and hearts being intertwined. Amidst the chaos, moments of unexpected tenderness emerged. Jace discovered that Vera's ability to read his dirty thoughts was not merely a voyeuristic power but a gateway to profound connection, a way to share his fears, desires, and hopes in a language beyond words. He, in turn, learned to open his mind with vulnerability, trusting her to hold his secrets with care and affection. Together, they forged a sanctuary of intimacy that defied the darkness surrounding them. But the galaxy was vast, and threats loomed on every horizon. Their fight was far from over. Yet within the crucible of danger and desire, Jace and Vera found a fierce, unbreakable bond, a testament to the power of love that sees beyond the mind's shadows to embrace the soul's light. Chapter 3: The Mind's Labyrinth and the Heart's Reckoning. The universe had never seemed more vast, nor the darkness more profound, than in the days following Vera's escape from the clutches of the Syndicate. Their flight from the mining colony back to the tangled web of Axiom 9's neon veins was fraught with peril, each moment shadowed by the knowledge that enemies lurked not only in physical form, but in the very corridors of minds and alliances. Jace Mercer had never felt so exposed, not because of the bullets that whispered past him or the stalking predators that haunted the station's underbelly, but because Vera's empathic presence unveiled the depths of his psyche, like a fragile manuscript laid bare in flickering light. Vera herself was a paradox, a being whose gift allowed her to plumb the depths of others' thoughts, yet one who bore the scars of invasion on her own consciousness. The invasive probes used by the Syndicate had left unseen fissures, moments of fractured memory, and alien whispers that haunted her dreams. Each night, she wrestled with the cacophony of emotions that flooded her mind, echoes of fear, desperation, and the twisted delight her captors took in unraveling her essence. It was in these moments that Jace became her anchor, his presence a steady flame in the tempest of her soul. Their sanctuary was a dimly lit room tucked away in the station's quieter sectors, walls lined with worn holobooks and faded relics of lost worlds. Here, stripped of the station's glare and clamor, their vulnerabilities found safe harbor. Vera would often close her eyes, sinking into the warmth of Jace's touch as he traced comforting patterns along her skin, grounding her. "You're not alone," he whispered, his voice a balm against the alien shadows that threatened to consume her. "Not while I'm here." Yet, intimacy in their world was more than physical. It was a melding of minds as much as bodies. Vera's empathic gift allowed her to traverse the intricate labyrinth of Jace's thoughts, discovering secrets even he had forgotten or denied. She read the raw, unfiltered desires, the fantasies of passion and surrender that burned beneath his rugged exterior, the jagged edges of loneliness carved by years of survival and betrayal. But rather than recoil, she embraced them, weaving those fragments into a mosaic of understanding and acceptance that only deepened their connection. Jace, in turn, learned to lower his defenses, to share not only his darkest fantasies but the fragile hopes and fears he seldom admitted. He confided in Vera the burden of a past marked by loss, the family he'd left behind on a forgotten Earth colony, the comrades lost to ruthless skirmishes in distant sectors, the scars etched into his soul as indelibly as those on his body. In Vera's empathic gaze, he found solace, a silent promise that his story was known and cherished, not judged. However, the universe around them remained a crucible. The Syndicate's reach extended like a shadow across the Coalition's fringes, corrupting officials and fueling mercenary raids. Every whispered conversation, every coded message hinted at their relentless pursuit of Vera's unique talents. The very gift that bonded Jace and Vera also made them targets. Their love a dangerous liability in a galaxy where power was often won by domination and fear. Aware of this, Jace delved into the station's murky networks, seeking allies among hackers, smugglers, and disillusioned officials. His efforts uncovered a web of conspiracies that threatened not only Vera's freedom, but the fragile balance of power among the Coalition's factions. Together, they devised plans not only for survival but for resistance, a rebellion born from the union of empathic insight and human tenacity. The tension between their desire for normalcy and the necessity of vigilance permeated their days and nights. Moments of tenderness were punctuated by alarms and the whispered warnings of approaching danger. Yet, within this chaos, their bond crystallized into an unbreakable force. Vera taught Jace to harness her empathic energy in ways that sharpened their senses and blurred the line between perception and intuition. Jace, with his instinctive cunning and combat prowess, became both shield and sword, his every movement protecting the fragile heart they nurtured. One night, under the luminescence of Axiom 9's ever-shifting sky, their connection reached a new depth. Vera guided Jace into the recesses of her mind, a realm of swirling colors and emotions that transcended physical reality. There, in that shared psychic space, they confronted their fears and desires not as separate beings, but as entwined souls navigating the infinite complexity of existence. Jace saw not only Vera's pain and resilience, but the shimmering core of light that fueled her gift, a beacon of hope amidst the darkness. Emerging from this intimate communion, they found strength renewed. Yet, the path ahead was perilous. The Syndicate's leaders had escalated their hunt, deploying hunters with neural disruptors designed to sever empathic connections. The very essence of Vera's being was under siege, and Jace knew that to protect her, he might have to risk everything: his life, his freedom, his heart. As dawn painted the station in pale gold, the lovers stood united, aware that their journey was far from over. In a galaxy where thoughts could betray and love could be a weapon, they had forged a sanctuary of trust and passion. But beyond the walls of their refuge, the shadows lengthened, and the battle for mind and heart intensified. In the end, it was not technology or brute force that would decide their fate, but the profound, unyielding connection between two souls brave enough to bear their darkest thoughts and love them fiercely. Chapter 4. Beyond the Mind's Veil, The Reckoning and the Promise. The final chapter of their journey began under a sky painted with streaks of violet and burning orange, the twin suns of Axiom 9 dipping low to cast long, haunting shadows over the sprawling labyrinth of the station. The air was thick with anticipation, a charged silence that seemed to vibrate through the metal corridors and neon-lit plazas where countless lives intersected, collided, and often shattered. For Jace Mercer and Vera, the stakes had never been higher. Their fragile sanctuary had been breached, and the hunters' agents of the Syndicate, whose reach extended like tendrils into every corner of the galaxy, were closing in, relentless in their pursuit of Vera's empathic gift. The night before the reckoning was a tempest of whispered plans and heavy hearts. In a secluded chamber layered with ancient relics and flickering holoscreens, allies gathered, a motley coalition of smugglers, renegade hackers, and empathic outcasts united by the shared goal of preserving freedom in a galaxy ruled too often by fear. Vera stood at the center, a luminous figure whose presence seemed to steady the chaos around her. Her eyes, once haunted by shadows of captivity, now burned with fierce resolve. Jace watched her, admiration and fierce protectiveness weaving through his every thought. This woman, who had read his darkest fantasies and loved them without hesitation, was more than a companion. She was his anchor in the storm. They devised a plan that was as daring as it was desperate: to infiltrate the Syndicate's heart and expose the corruption that threatened to consume the Coalition's fragile peace. It was a mission that would test not only their physical and mental limits, but the very foundation of their connection. The empathic link that bound them was both a weapon and a vulnerability. Sever it, and Vera could be lost forever. Strengthening that bond became their focus, an unspoken vow whispered in moments stolen between tension and preparation. As the hour of confrontation approached, the corridors of Axiom 9 seemed to close in, each step echoing like a drumbeat of fate. Jace and Vera moved as one, their thoughts intertwined in a symphony of trust and defiance. Vera reached deep into Jace's mind, plucking fears and doubts and replacing them with clarity and courage. In turn, Jace shielded her from the relentless psychic assaults that sought to unravel her, a living barrier forged from love and willpower. The assault on the Syndicate's fortress was swift and brutal. Shadows danced with bursts of plasma fire, and the hum of advanced weaponry mingled with the cries of the desperate. Vera's empathic powers surged, unraveling enemy strategies and sowing confusion, while Jace's expert combat skills carved a path through the chaos. Every moment was a test of endurance, every breath a battle against the encroaching darkness. But amid the violence, their connection remained unbroken, a beacon of light piercing the void. In the heart of the fortress, they confronted the Syndicate's leader, a figure shrouded in mystery and malice, whose own psychic abilities rivaled Vera's. The duel was as much a battle of minds as of bodies, waves of emotion and thought clashing in a tempest unseen by most. Jace stood beside Vera, his presence grounding her, their combined strength overwhelming the darkness that sought to consume them. When the final blow was struck, it was not merely a victory of force but of unity and understanding. Emerging into the dawn, the station itself seemed to breathe anew. The Syndicate's grip loosened, and whispers of change spread through Axiom 9's corridors. Vera and Jace had not only survived, they had ignited a spark of hope that promised a future where empathic gifts would be honored, not hunted. Their love, forged in the crucible of danger and desire, stood as a testament to the power of acceptance and trust. In the quiet aftermath, as they sat beneath the vast expanse of stars visible through the station's transparent domes, Vera traced gentle patterns on Jace's skin, her touch a silent vow. "Your thoughts," she murmured, "the ones I read and loved, have become my anchor. Together, we've faced darkness and emerged stronger." Jace smiled, his eyes reflecting the starlight and a newfound peace. "And you, Vera, have taught me that the mind's shadows need not be feared but embraced. Our story is just beginning." As the galaxy turned beyond the glass, two souls intertwined, their journey a beacon shining through the endless night, proof that even in a universe vast and cold, connection and love could illuminate the way. The galaxy outside Axiom 9's battered hull was a vast ocean of stars, cold and indifferent, yet within the station's depths, a fire burned, a fire of desperate hope and fierce love between two souls bound by secrets and shadows. Jace Mercer stood at the window of their small sanctuary, the neon glow from the city below casting fractured reflections across his face. His mind was a turbulent sea of thoughts, each wave crashing with memories of battles fought, betrayals endured, and the fragile trust he had found in Vera. She was not just an empath who read his mind, she was the mirror reflecting every hidden desire, every whispered fear, and every shard of hope he had long buried beneath layers of cynicism. Vera approached silently, her steps as light as the mist that sometimes curled through the station's corridors. Her eyes, glowing softly with the iridescent light that marked her kind, met his with a tenderness that both comforted and ignited something raw within him. "It's time," she whispered, voice barely audible above the hum of distant engines and life beyond their walls. "They're coming. They found us." Jace nodded, his jaw clenched against the tension knotting his muscles. The Syndicate's reach had tightened like a noose, and the hunt was no longer a shadow stalking the edges, it was a storm raging at their doorstep. But unlike before, this time they were prepared. Months of planning, alliances forged in the underworld's darkest corners, and the strengthening of their empathic bond had armed them with something beyond weapons or technology: unity. The assault began in the dead of night. Explosions shattered the station's uneasy peace, sending shards of metal and sparks cascading through the corridors. Shadows moved like phantoms, enemies cloaked in advanced stealth gear, hunting for Vera's unique neural signature. But Jace and Vera fought back not just with blades and blasters, but with minds intertwined in perfect synchronicity. Vera's empathic waves disrupted their foes' coordination, sowing confusion and hesitation, while Jace's sharp instincts and brutal skill cleared a path through the chaos. In the heart of the conflict, their bond was tested beyond limits. Vera's mind linked with Jace's, sharing pain, fear, and determination in a torrent of raw emotion that transcended words. When an enemy's neural disruptor struck, attempting to sever their connection, it was their shared will, their trust in one another, that shattered the assault. Pain became power, vulnerability became strength, and together they turned the tide. The final confrontation came face-to-face with the Syndicate's leader, a cold, calculating figure who wielded psychic powers rivaling Vera's own. The duel was a tempest of thought and fury, a battle in the psychic plane that rippled through the station's very foundations. Jace stood as Vera's anchor, his presence steady and unyielding as she unleashed the full force of her empathic gift. The leader's mind cracked under their combined assault, his dark influence shattered by the unbreakable light of their unity. As silence reclaimed the station, dawn crept over the horizon, bathing Axiom 9 in hues of hope. The Syndicate's grip had been broken, its reach diminished, and a new era dawned where empathic gifts were no longer chains but bridges. Jace and Vera, weary but unbroken, emerged from the ruins hand in hand, their love a beacon against the endless night. Under the vast cosmos, beneath a tapestry of stars older than time, they whispered promises not just of survival, but of life lived boldly and together. The dirty thoughts once hidden were now a shared flame, illuminating the path forward, a path where mind and heart danced as one, fearless and free.